title this, I was going to put "Don't Judge Me" as the title.
Yeah.
We seem to get over in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1, and it says, "Judge not, lest ye be judged," and we stop. We stop right there, but verse 2 says, "Lest of you with the same judgment," with the same measure. So if I'm judging you in one way, I'm going to be judged that way, and that's what the point is trying to get across there. If you have your Bibles, if you go to Ezekiel 33 with me. And for those of you that can read your Bibles, please bring them. I know we put them on the screens, and that's great and everything. And a lot of the older folks can't see very well. But whenever we're reading, many times I have been in my Bible. When we've been over at Donovan going to church out there, we didn't have screens. So many times. Optically challenged, exactly right. So Jody would be reading something, and he would stop, say, on verse 22. Verse 23 and 24 and 25 spoke to my heart about something. I might not have seen that if I didn't have a Bible on my lap. So it's important that you carry your Bible with you. And also just to be an example, like I'm reading the old King James term there, to the rest of the world. They see you carrying that. It's like wearing the cross around your neck. Be an example to the rest of the world. Ezekiel 33, we'll start at verse 1. It says, "Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, speak to the children of thy people, and say unto them, When I bring the sword upon a land, if the people of the land take a man out of their coasts, and set him for their watchman, if when he seeth the sword come upon the land, and he blow the trumpet, and warn the people, then whosoever heareth the sound of the trumpet, and taketh not the warning, if the sword come, and take him away, his blood shall be on his own head. He heard the sound of the trumpet, and took not the warning, his blood shall be upon him. But he that taketh the warning shall deliver his soul. But if the watchman see the sword come, and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood I will require the watchman's hand. So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me. When I say unto the wicked, O wicked man, thou shalt surely die, if thou dost not speak to warn the wicked from his way. The wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood I will require at thine hand. Nevertheless, if thou warn the wicked of his way to turn from it, and if he do not turn from his way, he shall die in his iniquity, but thou hast delivered thy soul. That's a pretty clear warning right there. It's just not for, I'm not telling you to go out in the streets and tell every person you're a sinner and this and that, but, whenever preachers are preaching the gospel and they're telling you a sin is sin, and you don't like it, there's something wrong. He's the watchman, and he is warning you at God's command that sin is sin and to turn away from it. What will send you to hell, and what will give you eternal life and salvation. And so many times we don't want to hear any of that because, we don't want to hear it. Who wants to be told you're doing something wrong all the time? But if you know you're doing something wrong, then do something to change it. Right? So let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 2. And we're going to read here with the static keep popping. We're going to read here what happens when you refuse to warn someone. Chapter 2, verse 12. It says, Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial, and they knew not the Lord. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant came, while the flesh was in the seething, with a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand. And he struck it into the pan, or kettle, or cauldron, or pot. And all that the flesh hook brought up, the priest took for himself. So they did in Shiloh unto all the Israelites that came thither. Also before they burnt the fat, the priest's servant came and said to the man that sacrificed, give flesh to roast for the priest, for he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw. And if any man said unto him, let them not fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth, then he would answer him, Nay, but thou shalt give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force. Wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for men abhorred the offering of the Lord. And the reason why that's such a big deal is over in Leviticus, in chapter 3 of Leviticus, it's a Levitical law to burn the fat off and offer it as a sacrifice unto God at this time. And that goes to God before anything else happens. And what they're doing is, they're saying, I don't want that old sodden. The sodden meat is boiled meat. And it's probably flavorless and disgusting. But it's nutrition. Right? They don't want that. They want the fatty stuff. Like my grandma always ate fat on a steak. And I always picked that stuff off because that's nasty to me. It's mushy. It's gross. But that's where all the flavor is. And so, yeah, exactly. They were eating all the fat that was supposed to be going to God. Therefore, they broke the law of God by doing this. Verse 22 says, Now Eli was very old, and heard all his sons did unto Israel, and how they lay with women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he said unto them, Why do ye such things? For I hear of your evil dealings by all this people. Nay, my sons, for it is no good report that I hear. You make the Lord's people to transgress. If one man sinneth against another, the judge shall judge him. But if a man sin against the Lord, who shall entreat for him? Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them. Now, I don't imagine he took that very seriously. I don't imagine Eli said, Hey, stop that, knock it off. You guys cannot act like this. I'm a priest in this house, and I will take you out of this house as quick as God puts you in here.
Yeah.
I'll pull this car over. Right? I've heard that many times. I'll stop this car right now. We'll turn around and go home. But Eli didn't do that. To me, it almost sounds like he gently, in a soft voice, said, Now, you shouldn't be doing that. This is not a good thing that you do. I mean, if Eli's a priest and his sons are priests, I mean, why does he not take them out of office? Right? I mean, I would have. If they're not following the commandment of God, and I've had God come to me and prophesy, and I've heard, and God has done miraculous things for all of Israel in my lifetime that I've seen, I would have taken them out of office knowing that there's a just God up there that's going to hold me accountable. But he doesn't do that. Where was that?
You should be at 1 Samuel 2:27 now.
Okay, thank you. And there came a man of God unto Eli, and he said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Did I plainly appear unto the house of thy father when they were in Egypt, in Pharaoh's house? And did I choose of him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to offer upon mine altar, to burn incense, to wear an ephod before me? And did I give unto the house of thy father all the offerings made by fire of the children of Israel? Wherefore kick ye at my sacrifice and mine offering, which I have commanded in my habitation, and honorest thy sons above me, to make yourselves fat with the chiefest of all the offerings of Israel, my people. I mean, that's pretty clear. Why do you despise me so much that you reject my offering? That you take from me what I've commanded that you give me? What have I done? Did I not prophesy to you? Did I not set you up? And here you are. You refuse to obey me. You refuse to follow. You refuse to make your children listen and allow them to do terrible things in the house of God and to steal from God. And says, Wherefore the Lord God of Israel saith, I said indeed that thy house and thy house of thy father should walk before me forever. But now the Lord saith, Be it far from me, for them that honor me I will honor, and they that despise me I shall lightly esteem. Behold, the days will come that I will cut off thine arm and the arm of thy father's house, and there shall not be an old man in thy house. So there's the answer right there. There's God's decision. I will honor those who honor me, and I will lightly esteem those that despise me. Then he goes on to tell him, I'll cut off thine arm. It means I'll break your strength, basically, from thy father's house. Verse 34 says, And it shall be a sign unto thee, and shall come upon thy two sons, on Hophni and Phinehas, in one day they shall both of them, or shall die, both of them. And he goes on to say he'll raise up the faithful priests, which we know he does. In chapter 3, Samuel was with Eli. And we all know the story how they both laid down at night. And God said, Samuel. He ran to Eli and said, Yes, you called me. No, I didn't call you. Go back to bed. Samuel, I know you called me this time, right? No, I didn't call you. Go back to bed. Samuel, now this time I know you called me. No, I didn't call you. Oh, wait a second. I perceive that the Lord's calling you. If he calls you again, say, Your servant heareth. Speak, O Lord. So he does that. And in verse 11, I'm sorry, let's go to verse 10. He says, And the Lord came and stood and called at other times, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel answered, Speak, for thy servant heareth. And verse 11 says, And the Lord said unto Samuel, Behold, I do a thing in Israel, at which both the ears of everyone that heareth shall tingle. Now, that tingle is like, I cannot believe I'm hearing this. Like, it's such news that you didn't think you'd ever hear. For example, today is the remembrance of 9/11, the terrible tragedy 18 years ago. When everybody heard that news, I bet everybody in here can remember where they were in that moment. I was standing in my backyard trying to figure out why my phone wouldn't work. Found the phone line had been cut. I don't know why it got cut. I don't know who did it. Just some hoodlum kids in the neighborhood. I don't know. But I remember because when I walked back in the house, I turned the TV on and I seen that. And I thought, that must be why my phone line didn't work. And it turned out it was that they ended up cutting a line. But I remember where I was, and everybody remembers where they were at that particular moment. So it was such news that the ears of them tingled. They were in dismay. They were in awe. They could not believe what they were hearing, right? That's what God is saying. He said, I will do things in Israel at which both the ears of one that heareth shall tingle. In verse 12 he says, In that day I will perform against Eli all things which I have spoken concerning his house. When I begin, I will also make an end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knoweth, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. So there's your proof that Eli probably didn't really say much to his boys. Boys, you shouldn't be doing that. Well, God's saying right here, you didn't restrain them. They're your children. You didn't do it.
Yeah, you didn't restrain them.
They were making a mockery of my law, of my covenant, and everything else.
Yes.
Verse 14 says, And therefore I have sworn unto the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be purged with sacrifice or offering forever. Well, he's not going to be forgiven now, is he? The iniquity of his house shall not be purged. They can't go burn an offering anymore for the sacrifice of their sins. What good would it do anyway? Because they probably would have just taken the best of the fat that they were going to sacrifice for God anyway for their own sins.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they were doing. Chapter 4, the first verse says, And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and pitched beside Ebenezer. And the Philistines pitched against Aphek. And as we read this, we know that they get ready to go to battle with the Philistines. When the Philistines seen the Ark of the Covenant coming into the camp, they begin to tremble. Just fear come over them. And they said, woe is us. Woe is us. You know, it says the Philistines were afraid. They said, God is coming to the camp. And they said, woe unto us, for there hath not been such a thing heretofore. And he says, woe unto us, that who shall deliver us out of the hands of these mighty gods? These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. Verse 9 has always been very interesting to me because I'm trying to figure out who's speaking here. Because the Philistines are all saying, woe is us, woe is us. And the best thing I can figure out has to be some commander in their army, because it says, be strong and quit yourselves like men. O you Philistines, that ye be not servants unto the Hebrews, as they have been unto you. Quit yourselves like men and fight. So be like men and fight. Now, I've tried to research that. I don't know who's speaking that verse. The best that anybody can come up with is it has to be a commander in the army of the Philistines. But it just seems like it, you know, to me that they would say, but a commander of the Philistines said the following. You know, instead of all the Philistines going, woe unto us, it makes it almost sound like, you know, someone else is speaking. But anyhow, I won't get down that rabbit trail. So verse 10 says, and the Philistines fought Israel and was smitten, and they fled every man into his tent. And there was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. And the ark of God was taken, and the sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. And there ran a man of Benjamin out of the army and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes rent and with earth upon his head. He was in mourning. It was a sign of mourning back in the time to either cover yourself in ashes or dirt, rent your clothes, tear your clothes, as a sign of your anguish toward God. God, what has happened to us? And verse 13 says, and when he came low, Eli sat upon a seat by the wayside watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the man came into the city and told it, all the city cried out. And here's where the prophecy is fulfilled. And when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, what meaneth this noise of this tumult? And the man came in hastily and told Eli. There was such a noise in the city that Eli could hear it out by the gate. What is the meaning of this noise? That's the prophecy fulfilled of the ears tingling. Verse 15 says, now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were dim, and he could not see. And the man said unto Eli, I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army. And he said, what is there done, my son? And the messenger answered and said, Israel is fled before the Philistines, and there hath been also a great slaughter among the people. And thy two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God is taken. And it came to pass, when he made mention of the ark of God, that he fell from off his seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck brake, and he died. For he was an old man and heavy, and had judged Israel 40 years. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, with child near to be delivered, when she heard of the tidings that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself in travail, for her birth pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the women that stood by her said unto her, fear not, for thou hast bore a son. But she answered not, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory of God is departed Israel. The glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because her father-in-law and her husband, and because of her father-in-law and husband, and because of the sins of the leaders of the people, and because of refusal to obey God, and for the refusal to make the leaders of the church or the temple his own sons obey God. The last thing I want any of us to do is for our hearts to become Ichabod, because we refuse to change something about ourselves. We refuse to change something that we know is sin, but we want to hang on to it just a little bit longer. We refuse to change the behaviors of brothers or sisters. You can't make them change, but you can certainly tell them about their change. If they live in your household, that's when you can make them change. As long as you're in my house, with me in my house, we will serve the Lord. If you don't want to be in this house, you don't have to serve the Lord. But as long as you're in my house, we will serve the Lord. Now let's turn to 2 Samuel, chapter 11. Sorry, we got a lot of reading tonight, but it's just what the Lord gave me. Second Samuel chapter 11, verse 1. It said, "And it came to pass after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, and David sent Joab of his servants with him, and all Israel, and they were destroyed, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah, but David tarried still at Jerusalem." Right there was a mistake. It says at the time of year when kings go forth to battle. David didn't go out to battle. He tarried and stayed behind. So what happens whenever your mind is idle? Devil's workshop. Or devil's playground, my grandma used to say. David should have been out at battle, right? He chose us to tarry. So what happens? What you doing? Stop it. Shh. Phone's talking to me. Verse 2 says that it came to pass in an evening time that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman that was washing herself. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon. You know the song, "Be careful, little eyes, what you see"? David didn't turn away his eyes, nor did he repent. He conceived lust in his heart and dwelt on it. The more he thought of it, the more it conceived. This is why Jesus declared that if you look upon someone with lust, you've already committed adultery in your heart. Verse 3 says, "And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Elon, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" And David sent messengers and took her, and she came unto him, and he lay with her. For she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned to her house. Now David knows she's a married woman. I don't know whether it was power, as being king, loneliness, what caused David to sway off the path. He was weak at that moment. Yeah. James 1:15 says, "When lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death." David allowed lust to conceive into sin. We know it doesn't kill him, obviously, but in that moment, he was probably pretty spiritually dead. And the woman conceived, and sent and told David, and said, "I am with child." And David sent. Now, David's got a plan at this point. What is it about humans that when we've done something wrong and we don't get caught, we come up with a scheme, a plan to fix it? Have you ever told a lie in your life and you had to tell another lie to cover up that lie? Or you tell another lie to make it sound more plausible, and it snowballs into this massive thing that you can't control anymore, until finally somebody goes, "You're lying," and then it's egg on your face. You were better off just reacting right there and confessing. You know, at work, one of my coworkers has this beautiful clock that was made from some kind of instrument or dial from a ship, from a World War II ship. And they polished the aluminum up, made it super shiny, put a clock face inside it. It's this nautical thing, and it's hanging on his wall. Well, one day I was at the office early. I mean, when they were 7 o'clock, but I heard this in the wall, this scratching. And so I walked over and I was listening for this scratching, and I knew it was a mouse. And I got up against the wall where it was. I took my fist and went, BAM! I hit the wall on the outside of his office. What followed next was the loudest crash I'd ever heard in my entire life. And I thought, Lord, have mercy, please let that be the mouse. It was not the mouse. It was this great big round clock, about this big around, that weighed approximately 17 pounds, jumped off of the anchor that he put in the wall, because what he did was he screwed the anchor in. He didn't unscrew it enough for the catch on the back of the clock to go over the head of the screw. So it was just sitting on the edge of the screw. When I punched the wall, it fell down. Now, I could have easily said, well, how about that? I don't know what happened there. Right? But then, a trooper came, exactly. But then he probably would have said something like, well, now, how does a clock just fall off? I mean, even if I didn't get it hooked on there good, how does it just fall off? Something had to have happened. And then I probably would have had to come up with something like, well, maybe there was an earthquake. There was no weather last night. You know, it just snowballs. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So instead of taking that route, I said, oh, you're not going to believe what I did. What'd you do? Open your office door. Go to the office door. He's like, oh my goodness. He's like, well, how did you get in here? I was like, I didn't need to get in. I said, your shoddy craftsmanship did that. You should have hung that up better. I said, well, I heard this mouse crawling, scratching in the wall. And it's driving me crazy because my office is in the back. When there ain't nobody in there, it's on concrete floors, you hear every noise that goes on in that building. Sometimes it's like, who's in here? And I'll sneak around with my phone. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, I guess. Take a picture. But I sneak around to see, did somebody come in the front door and I didn't hear them come in? Because you hear noises all through that building when there's no one there. So the mouse is driving me crazy. And so I was telling him, that mouse is driving me crazy, so I walked up to the wall, and I just hit the wall to make him stop digging. He was like, how hard did you hit the wall? Well, I didn't break the sheetrock, but obviously it was enough to break a clock. And I was like, I take responsibility for that, and I'll fix that. Well, I didn't fix the clock, I just had to replace the glass in it. That's all that broke out of it. Thank God, because the clock was over $200. I looked it up online. It was a gift from his father. So, I did get the glass replaced, and it works fine. It even looks better than it did because we put brass washers inside and behind the dials. So now it looks even better than it did before. But, you know, and he thought, he came to me later and he thanked me. He said, you know, I want to thank you for telling me the truth on that. He said, because you could have told me you don't know, and I couldn't have proved it because you don't have a key to my office, so, you know, I don't know. It's just like, but that's where we mess up as people. We want to cover up our tracks as human beings because we don't want to admit that truth. And what the definition of integrity is what you'll do when nobody's watching. So that was a good moment for us because he had not been in that office very long at that point. And since then we have become very good friends. Spent time outside of work together. Now, let's see, where was I at? Verse
6.
6, thank you. And David sent Joab, saying, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah was coming to him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war prospered. Just making excuses to get this guy here. Because he's already got in his mind, I've got to cover up this pregnancy. How am I going to do that? I'll get his husband. I'll get her husband to come lay with her. And no one will be any the wiser. This will all wash over, and I won't get caught. You know, not getting caught does not work. I mean, God has a way of bringing the truth to light. And David said to Uriah, "Go down to thy house and wash thy feet." And Uriah departed to the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants and the Lord, and went not down to his house. And when they had told David, saying, "Uriah went not down into his house," David said to Uriah, "Camest thou not from thy journey? Why then didst thou not go down into thine house?" Because he was an honorable man. He says so in verse 10. He says, verse 11, he says, "And Uriah said unto David, The ark and Israel and Judah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in open fields. Shall I then go into mine house and eat, drink, and lie with my wife? As thou livest, as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing." Why should I be any different than the rest of these men? If all your servants are encamped about your door, and all the servants of Israel are out in tents, why am I getting this special? What's so good about me that I need to go in? Why am I getting this privilege? No, that will not happen. I will be like the rest of these men out here. Integrity. And David said to Uriah, "Tarry here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart." So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, and made him drunk. And at the even he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his Lord, but went not down to his house. David's probably thinking, if I could just get him drunk, he'll slip up and he'll go to the house. Exactly right, he'll slip up. But even in his drunken state of mind, he had the integrity to go, "No, the boys are sleeping outside, I'm going to have to sleep outside. If my commander's sleeping outside, I've got to sleep outside." So, what happens next? It came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah and he wrote in the letter saying, "Set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him that he may be smitten and die." Now, I've heard Tommy preach this message before, and it's very powerful to know that you just got your own death sentence in your hand, and you're personally carrying your death sentence to your commander. It'd be like carrying your own rope to the gallows, your own switch to the electric chair. I mean, me and Joe were talking earlier, and he said whenever he goes, he just wants to be put in a little can. And I said, "Lord, hell's too hot for me. I don't want to go. I don't want to be on fire at all. Put me in a box." I said, "Put me in a." I said, "I'll be simple. Just put me in a pine box." He goes, "Well, then you got to pay for that." And I said, "Well, build it yourself." He's like, "Rick, that's morbid. You can't be building your own coffin." He had a point, but pretty morbid there to think that Uriah is carrying his own death sentence and doesn't even know it. And verse 17 says, "And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also." Now the next few verses, it goes on to say that Joab sends the messenger back to tell David of all the things happens. And he's saying he's probably going to tell you, "Why did you do this? Are you stupid?" I mean, I'm paraphrasing here. That's not what the Bible says. But did you not know they were going to shoot from off the top of the wall? Why did you get close to the wall? He's telling the messenger, this is probably what David's going to say to you. But no, David doesn't say that. He gets over there and he tells him, and the messenger said to David, "Surely the men rebelled against us, and they came out unto us into the field. and we were upon them even into the entering gate. And the shooters shot from off the wall upon thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. David's probably thinking, all right. Now, my whole plot was, since I couldn't get him to go lay with his wife, I can take her to be my wife, hopefully before all of this, she starts showing like this, and everybody realizes what's going on. You know. So David said unto the messenger, Thou shalt say this unto Joab, Let not this thing displease thee. For the sword devoureth one as well as another. Make thy battle more strong against the city and overthrow it, and encourage him. Now, that is not the answer the messenger was looking for. I'm sure that he's probably thinking, King, kill not the servant. Kill not thy servant. Don't kill the messenger. For sure is what he's thinking. Don't kill the messenger. And it goes on to say that the wife of Uriah mourned when she found her husband was dead, and then after the time of mourning, which was 7 days, and from what I could find in Jewish law, David took her to be his wife. It's still pretty fast in my opinion. Now here's the part that I loved. And this is where Nathan stands up. And I'm sorry, I'll let y'all go in just a second. I'm right at the end, I promise you. This is where a man of God stands up for what's right and does what God tells him to do. And the Lord sent Nathan unto David, and he came unto him and said unto him, There were 2 men, one in one city, the rich one and the other poor. The rich man had exceedingly many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing save one little ewe lamb, which he had brought and nourished up. And it grew up together with him and with his children. It did eat of his own meat, and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, as it was unto him as a daughter. And there came a traveler unto the rich man, and he spared to take of his own flock and of his own herd, to dress for the wayfaring man that was come unto him. But took the poor man's lamb, and dressed it for the man that was come to him. Now, David is angry at this point. It says, And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, As the Lord liveth, this man that hath done this thing shall surely die. But he didn't have any right to be angry, did he? I mean, did he not take something that was not his? But this is where he gets it flung back in his face. He goes on to say, And he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. And Nathan said unto David, Thou art the man. Yeah. Thou art the man. Yeah. Now, you have to realize that David being king could have had Nathan killed. It's just another servant to David. David could have had him killed. But I'd like to go back to that verse in Matthew. It says, And fear not them which kill the body, but rather fear him which is able to kill destroy both the soul and body in hell. Nathan had no fear. I don't imagine for a second Nathan trembled. God sent him, he went. Because Nathan was an upright man. And he said, Thou art the man. And I can just imagine if I were there, I could see Nathan going, Thou art the man. Just pointing right in his face. And Nathan said unto David, Thou art the man, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hands of Saul. And I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and Judah. And if it had been too little, I would have moreover given unto you such and such things. If it had not been enough, I would have done more. All you would have to do is just ask. But you didn't. You took matters into your own hands. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord, to do evil in his sight. Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with a sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of the sun. Means in everybody's presence, open, publicly. It won't be done in secret. It says, for thou didst it secretly, but I'll do this thing before all Israel and before all the sun. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against God. Here David's repenting. I have sinned against God. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord hath also hath put away thy sin, and thou shalt not die. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child that is born unto thee shall surely die. And that verse right there, you have given reason, you have given occasion for those non-believers to say, your faith is nothing. Look what you're a terrible person. Look what you did. And sometimes we do that at work. Kind of like Brother Tommy, I get wrapped up in joking sometimes at work. You know, we shouldn't be doing that. Ephesians tells you that we shouldn't be jesting with one another, but rather giving praise. And Proverbs even speaks about it, saying that, something about offending his neighbor, but he says, am I not just in sport? We're not supposed to do that, right? So, the moral of the story here is, we're commanded to warn. There's a price to pay for refusal to warn. And then there's redemption when we are warned. See, David was forgiven his sins, and he was redeemed. Then his child did die.
Yes.
There was a punishment.
Yes.
Another sacrifice. But there is redemption.